I loved Harry Truman. I have always said the three greatest people I've ever met are Harry Truman, Raymond Burr, and Sumner Redstone. All dynamos in their own way, but because Harry Truman, as you know, he became president because of the death of a certain president, and he ran for office a second time, and he beat out Tom Dewey, that famous picture. But Truman loved to travel by train, and when he ran for president for the first time, after having been named president, he did a whistle-stop tour and went all over the country by train. And I got to know him because he came into Chicago a few times. And at that time, since he lived in Missouri, in St. Louis, Merle Jones, who was the manager of the station in St. Louis, introduced me to him on a personal basis. So I had, in the meantime, I had made friends with a man by the name of Charlie Callanan, who represented Mayor Daley, and Mayor Daley ran everything in the city. And so Truman was coming in, and I think the year was 1952. He was ready to announce that he was not going to run again. And he was going to come into Chicago for a meeting of the Democratic National Committee. So in my conversation with Charlie Callanan, I asked him, I said, Charlie, do you know when he's coming in? Because I'd like to interview him and get if I can. And he said, all I know is that he's in about such and such a date, but I tell you what, I'll find out and let you know. So he called me late at night and said, Mr. and Mrs. Truman, President and Mrs. Truman are coming in by train. It was his favorite mode of transportation, and they're coming in tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and they should be in. They're taking a train in the late overnight train, and I don't know what car they'll be on or where they'll be, but he said they would be leaving from Kansas City. I said, okay, so I got my cameraman Don Norling and soundman Earl Platt, and we drove down to the last train stop before the train headed into Chicago, the station. And Don left his car at the station there, and we boarded that train when it made a stop in the middle, early in the morning, and we got on the train, and I had with me the Chicago Police Department has police badges for press badges, and I had my press badge with me, which looked like a policeman's badge, a very beautiful thing. So we got on the train, and for some reason there wasn't any security to speak of. We got on the train, and I bribed a porter to find out what car Bess and Harry Truman were in. And I showed him my badge, and I gave him some money, and he said, well, I shouldn't tell you this, but they're compartment so-and-so. So I went down the hall and waited, and at about a half an hour before the train was to come into Chicago, I rapped on the door, and President Truman opened the door, and there he was, all dressed except for his bow tie. And he said, oh, hi, he remembered me. And I said, can you do an interview in the hallway with me for CBS? And he said, oh, I'd love to, but old Bess is asleep, she's just getting up. He said, let me get a bow tie on. So he went in the room, and he came out, and we did the interview in the hall of the moving train as it was heading into Chicago, and I got the exclusive about whether he was going to run, which he was not going to run again. And when we pulled into the railroad station, I had my motorcycle messenger, John Sindler, who had a police motorcycle. He was waiting there because he knew that we were on the train, and he knew that I was going to get some footage. The train pulled into the station. As it pulled slowly into the station, I could see this horde of photographers, newspaper people down, waiting for the train to pull in. And I reached over the heads of John Sindler, my motorcycle messenger, was standing there, and he yelled, here I am, here I am. I reached over the heads of the other people, and I handed John Sindler this roll of film. He raced off, and these other people then were flabbergasted because they were going to get the interview, and I'd beaten them to it. So it was the most exciting thing I think ever happened to me.